Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Okay, a lot of things to discuss today on an urgent matter. But first, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Science, King, power, glory, yours now and forever. And your Son, our Savior, who spilled blood for us at Calvary, Jesus Christ. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to read you a small passage. Unfortunately, we have to breeze through this because there's too much world events I have to discuss. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Excuse me. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Right at the beginning of the gospel, John tells us that Jesus was far more than just a great teacher or a mighty prophet. In fact, he was God. Jesus is the express image of God's person. Yes, but remember the fact he's part of the Holy Trinity. Okay, so you can never put our Father below or on the same level. That doesn't mean that Jesus is not our King. He is. He's given sovereign. He saved us and everything else. But while he was here, he was a full human being. It's important. And as you note, many times he was praying to his Father. Okay, so that's very important. Now, that's not to say what he is now or what he was in the beginning. But while he was on the earth, he had all the frailties, all the things that you and I had, except no sin. Okay, so, and he maintained that perfection, the perfection of no sin. Didn't mean he cut wood with his father here to the atomic level. Okay, no, he cut wood as I'm sure he did a really fantastic job. I wish, man, I mean, would you like to have some of the stuff that Jesus made while he was here and doing things as a carpenter? Wow, like, right? So I'm sure he did the most excellent, bestest job he could do. Okay, yeah, but he was perfect, absolutely perfect in his faith, and that's incredible. That's why we're saved, because of that tremendous generosity. Hi, Max. You gotta say hi. Okay, take that to your bed. All right, now I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't care. So hope you guys are watching. We have never been this close to nuclear war since 19 really 62, since that October. Um, you have to remember. I know I'm intimately gravitated into that. My great uncle was George Bull. Okay, so they had a lot of meetings um, in his office. Now, of course, we know about that coup. That was actually the second Charlie Oscar Utah poll. The first one was Abraham Lincoln. The third one was this last election. And we can see we're in the same spot. Worse, our nuclear weapons, I'm going to give you reality. Our nuclear weapons have not been updated for 30 years. They haven't even been tested for the past 15. I told you it was going to be real. Okay. Tritium has basically a half life of 15 years. So if you have a gun sight, for example, and has tritium sights, they go bad after about 10 years for several reasons. One, the atoms of tritium are escaping the crystals that are holding there. Okay, that's the radiation of which is hitting the phosphorus and making the sites glow. Nothing can contain really tritium except a magnetic field or gold, basically. Lithium 6 and lithium 7, they have a half life of about 35 years in reality. Unlike you think and you've been taught and you've been told, our military, which was getting up to speed with under Trump, has been drastically cut under Biden, literally from the first day. The sequesters all went on, and programs and technologies and items that we had over the Russia and over China were canceled. In the infinite wisdom of this secretary, the military, all of our branches have been furiously working on essentially a woke policy. That does not make us more lethal, by the way. The problems of logistics have not been addressed. Furthermore, 48 hours before Russia attacked Ukraine, our ships that were in the Black Sea were pulled out. I put it to you, Ukraine is a friend. If our people went in and docked at those ports and set up liberty, remember the Aegis system, they can launch in port. That would have stopped a lot of this. Getting the weapons in there because he's been slow walking it. So all these things that you've been promised, you've been told, they haven't been getting there. I have people that I know that are on the ground in Ukraine, and they're only fighting with some British things, but mainly all the equipment that Trump managed to get in there in his brief tenure. I also have friends in Russia. They tell me that, well, there's been a whole bunch of new laws passed. They also tell me that these sanctions are basically hurting the crap out of them. Um, they live in a delta state, okay? use a word that might come to being. Same thing with Charlie Paul. It's coming out now that the laptop was real. The thing that the media is not discussing, except maybe I think OAN and some other things, is that Brandon was a traitor. You can see that those powers that be, I'll explain to you what's going on now. China has a contract with Russia to basically have a discount of oil, which means they're paying maybe 40 to 50%, and it's guaranteed for 35 years. So that fixes their energy supply. Thank you to Obama, they and Westinghouse, they're setting up and running the first thorium reactor on technology that we invented by Alan Weissman, who was the same person who invented the light water and heavy water and pressure water reactors that we have running now. And also his pen, he canceled programs, Obama did, here. And that was furthered by Biden in his first day of office, canceling programs here for the same. To put it to vernacular, a thorium reactor lifter is 98% efficient. Yes, they're breeder reactors, but they breed uranium 233 and uranium 232. That material cannot be used as a bomb. There is a small amount of plutonium that could be either burnt up in the reactor or used as a radioactive isotope fuel for NASA. So what happened? What's going on? What do I say that the whole world is getting out of the petrodollar? Well, Saudi Arabia is not pumping any more oil. Matter of fact, they're not taking Biden's calls. And Russia basically declared yesterday, if you watched the Putin speech, that they will not give out any more oil or gas unless it's paid for in rubles. This immediately changed the value of rubles by 83%. And all the dollars that are being used that were used to be petrodollars. I mean, you had to buy those dollars. You can change your stuff for dollars and always keep a certain amount of dollars on hand to purchase oil and gas. Okay. All those dollars, in addition to Q1 through 4, are all coming back to roost, which means you're going to see, I'm not kidding, 40%, 50% inflation. This is going to help the elites because the elites went into massive debt. Oh, yeah, they were buying stuff, doing stuff like crazy. So this allows them to pay off all that debt for 25 cents, 20 cents on the dollar, maybe, and get to own that stuff. How it hurts you is that all your savings, all your things will be wiped out. You won't be able to, there'll be several banks that are going to collapse and call in loans. And then also you won't be able to get a loan. And you won't be, just to go to a grocery store, it'll cost you $600, $700, which means economically what's going to happen is Europe's going to go into a depression, and we're probably going into a massive recession and or depression. Now, I thought it was 5. Jeff Foreman thought it was 5. Other thing, 40% of all the wheat that goes to Europe and all those other places there, India, for example. It all comes from the Ukraine area, okay, and Russia too, but mainly the Ukraine. Not going to happen. Like 60% of our fertilizer comes from Russia. That's not going to happen. So you have farmers here in the United States who are looking at astronomical prices for diesel. They're looking at incredible prices for fertilizer. And they're like, I don't know if I can afford to plant my field. And if they don't plant their field, what's going to happen to the bread in the store? I suggest that you go onto sites and you look and you buy 50 pounds worth of flour, you buy yeast, and you buy sugar. If you haven't got one, get one, a bread maker. Okay. I have three. I have three here and I have one in Vermont. My son from Dallas, he goes to Costco, whatever, and I was on the phone with him. Dad, there's no bread. Well, they later got some in, but there's the sign. Okay. So you're going to see all commodities are going to become essentially rarefied. Fuel is going to go insane through the roof. I don't care. The strategic reserves are just that. In a time of war, that's when you release them and tap them. And they will only power really our military. That's what it's for. So this idiot is basically foregoing. The other thing is not putting us on nuclear alert. So if there's an EMP weapon that's discharged over America or Europe or anything like that, our subs are never going to get the call because our subs don't work the way you think they do. They don't automatically launch their missile, not until we're in DEFCON 1. They have to get an EAS message. So it's really, and the majority of our nuclear weapons are in our bombers. If our bombers are on the ground, they're big fat targets for first strike. And the worst thing is, we'll probably, in the first 3 days of whatever's going to happen, we're probably going to lose 15 to 20,000 sailors. Because Russia, China, they have carrier killers. And they know how weak this administration is. You think that we're the only ones that didn't see his so-called cheat notes in his hand? He couldn't even read a teleprompter without making a mistake. He's not even a good puppet. And then who's president if everything he says is being walked back by his White House? So we're in really, really serious trouble. We haven't been in this trouble since really 1962. The difference is that we had a different president. We had a real president. And yes, you're saying, well, Bob, that means that the heart of your family was a Democrat. Yes, my Uncle Joe Ball, Joseph Ball, he was a senator. 20. They wanted him to run for president. He was a Democrat. He didn't want to do it because of the corruption, because all the stuff that's going on. As it was, Kennedy got in, fooling them, thinking that he was going to toe the line. They didn't look at his record. But when he got in there, yeah, he's got to make the changes that were needed. And once he threw the CIA out of his office, that's the clock, man. Once that happened, there was a ticking time bomb of a Charlie Oscar Utah Paul. Because you see, they work. The Charlie Indiana Alphas work for the same people who started doing all this stuff back in 1903. And really, if you go back 1903 here, you go back to Europe and everything else, you're talking 18th century. And our founding fathers warned us about this. Now you're saying, where's God in all this? How come God's letting this all happen? And I keep telling you, it's a test. It's actually written about. I never could understand the revelation. I really had a hard time reading and understanding it. I mean, I was like, well, this guy's on some kind of trip or something. But the reality is that either God was showing him, it could be an iPad or whatever. I mean, a window of what, or it transported him to this specific time. And so the thing you have to realize is that it's a man who has inferred reference of 2,000 years ago. That's his vocabulary. And you're like, what the heck is in? What's Bob talking about? What's inferred reference? I will give you a lesson. There might be some baseball fans out there. I'm going to just give you something very simple. I'm going to give you a very small amount of data. You're at opening day and your appropriate field and stadium of your appropriate baseball team. The air is crisp. It's not a cloud in the sky. Everything is new. And the balls that they're playing with in the beginning, because you're watching the practice, are shiny and white. What color is the field? You know it. It's green. What color is the sky? You know it. It's blue. Where are you? You see, all these images are coming to your mind because you've been to I'm assuming that you've been to this place, okay, whatever it is. That's inferred reference. And you have a reference for that. You know what the vocabulary is. You know what that noun is called. It's a baseball. It's a baseball bat. It's a uniform, a white uniform, etc. You know the rules of those fields. You know the grass is going to be really green. You know everything. Okay. And it's the first game of the season. John doesn't have this. He doesn't know what he's seeing. He only knows from the vocabulary of things that he knows. It's hard for him to read these things. He knows about items. How do you think John is going to describe? And because God's showing him everything. A truly transgendered person. How's he going to describe what's going on? How's he going to describe the children that have been killed? How's he going to describe the abortions? How's he going to see what I'm saying? So, yes, the end times were started in 1947, and they're approaching us extremely rapidly. But before that happens, the Antichrist has to have his reign. I think it's going to be at least 3 years of reign. Some others say five, whatever. People are going to think he is the Messiah. You and I know it's not. There won't be any doubt when the second coming of our Lord and Savior comes. But you see, he's going to try to trick as many people as he can. False prophets are going to join in, and they're going to try to lead as many Christians away from the Lord as possible. And I'll tell you why. The reason why is because what Christ did on the cross. Jesus defeated Satan on the cross. So by defeating him, they made him again purple. And so he insanely is trying to do this hate is what's driving him. Now you have a tremendous amount of going on today in all kinds of media. Okay, all kinds of things. It's in the Grammys, it's in awards, it's everything else. And um this type of thing goes back to, and you can look it up, why did the demons request Christ to cast them into pigs? Swine. I'll leave it at that. There's limited things I can discuss here. So what do you do? What am I saying this for? There's varying degrees of what people think because they really don't know of what an EMP is going to do. Oh, and to top it all off, the sun has been sending out pretty steady amount of flares towards the earth. Have been reaching one reached the KP7 level, most of them been doing KP6, everything else. This last one was actually reversed. So it kind of canceled the other one out, and the geothermal storms and the magnetic storms, they went to neutral, but still hitting. And there's no question that there is an agenda. And if you looked at the leak Zoom call from Disney's corporate, you'll see that there is an agenda. I put it to you that this agenda has been going on for a long time. Now, we don't judge, we don't put out hate, we don't do any of those things as Christians. We want demons, influences to be cast out. Okay? Because we don't want anybody going to HE double tooth this. Okay. Yeah, Jim, I'm not gonna discuss that. I mean, I was a fan maybe 25 years ago when Billy Crystal used to do the thing. It was actually funny. But it's become this narcissistic insanity of, oh, look at me and pat me on the back and give me $140,000 worth of goods because I just showed up. When there's so many freaking homeless in that specific area, it's and it's not even addressed. So the hypocrisy only goes so far. Now, Chernobyl is leaking for whatever reason. I knew that there was still some cesium, plutonium, other things that were there that were gonna be there for a long time. And the Russian soldiers, they came down with radiation sickness, so they left it. Yeah, no. CW nurse, no. Absolutely no. That's an insult to Trump. If you knew what I knew, and you know, there's literally Russian bombers that are flying over Switzerland right now. They're in a staging alert. There is all of the Russian leaders are in bunkers, and literally, I would say at least 20,000 on both sides have been killed. So, as a Christian, you have to find that appalling. Appalling, especially when the sun is getting ready to give us a Carrington event, which is going to send us back to the 18th century, if not further, and kill probably 90% of the population of this planet. It's not a biological threat, it's because we've become dependent upon technology to live and exist. So, oh no, I'm positive thinking. I know that um, God is letting this happen for a reason. He's letting it happen because it's the price we pay for freedom. It's also the price we pay for our test. Because you see, our test we can fail. We can pass the test. We can fail the test. As Christians, we're supposed to try to get as many people to pass the test as possible. So, does God interfere with certain things? Yep, He does. No ifs, ands, or buts. And I'm sure there were some incredible miracles that were done over in the Ukraine. But to say that Putin is working with Trump, that's absolutely insane and wrong. Trump never trusted Putin. But he did know this. He knew that Putin respects, as any tyrannical regime respects, strength. That's the only thing they respect. They don't respect anything else. They lie, they cheat, they steal, they break rules. They don't abide by treaties. They don't abide by agreements. They don't play fair. And I put it to you, it's Bush 41 that got us in this mess. At the end of really World War III, which was the Cold War, what we should have done, because we're really the same, is we should have joined Russia on the hip. And we should have done a joint Moon and Mars mission program with their scientists. We should have also taken a 99-year lease out on their tundra to get the mineral wealth and other things out of there. And we should have then built, and we could have, a hyperspeed train from Russia, from Moscow to Washington, D.C. via the Alaska Bridge. We could have done it. Now, what would that mean? What would that have done? That would have basically put China in a truly big pickup because you see, people don't understand this, but China is the threat since 1971. They now have a larger navy. Oh, yes, they don't have as many carriers as we do, but they have something better. What they did was they basically set up two carriers, which are in permanent location on artificial islands in the South China Sea. Basically, they have air power there, they have missiles there, they have everything there, and they did it underneath Obama's watch. I put it to you because that regime was also compromised. Obama was a Charlie Indiana Alpha creation. I don't see that at all. Charlie Fox Juliet. I do not see that. That's not what I see. I don't see that in any of the communications. I see the only person who has a chance of really winning in the 2024 elections, and that's if we have them, if we're able to get that far, is DeSantis if he decides to run. I don't see Trump running. I really don't. His wife doesn't want him to run. So, doesn't want him to run. The Greens trying to convince you that we are responsible for the earth and climate change and everything else. No. Ford and Toyota did not, again, melt the last ice age, nor did they freeze it. Okay. And we're going into another one again. There's been 1,200 earthquakes at Yellowstone recently. It's caused by as a magma plug forms and as it moves up, it underneath the pressure of the magma moving, it causes the rocks to fracture and melt. And each time it slips, it gives you an earthquake. These have been occurring from 6 kilometers down to 3.5 kilometers, which is, or 3 kilometers, which is the roof of the present caldera. All those measurements, by the way, are measured at sea level. I don't know if you realize that. The other thing is that there's a certain amount of data that's missing in all those USGS reports. Just like they couldn't update the SOHEL data that was coming from the satellites about this last X flare and its CME discharge as well. So the reality is that we have a lot of work to do because you first have to prepare big time. You're no longer going to be considered a nut if you're preparing. I'm no longer considered a nut at all. You have to prepare in the way to which that literally within a half an hour to 15 minutes, you can get the heck out of wherever you are to a safe place that you're going to be at for the next, I don't know, 50, 60 years at least, not longer. Because whatever the CMP does, the sun is going to finish it. There will not be anything that's even close to what the Carrington event is going to do. And we're going to get hit with a Carrington event within the next 5 years. That is no doubt because they've seen a Carrington event go off on the other side of the sun. And this is just the beginning of this cycle. So it's going to happen. Okay. And then, because of the galactic sheet and because of what they've been seeing Jupiter and the other planets go through and what they've detected, and you can find a lot of information on us on suspiciousservice.com and also other places. The sun is going to have a microflare event, which is even maybe 100,000 times worse than the Carrington event. That happens every 12,500 years on average. And we're due for that too, but it's probably not going to happen to about, maybe 25, 30 years. If not sooner, I don't know. When it happens, when it does happen, I don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's going to happen. It could cause a decoupling of our magnetic field to the plates, That could cause tremendous shifts, okay, in the plates. You could see a 45-degree shift of everything south. Um, we don't know. There's evidence that that's happened before. There's evidence that Antarctica wasn't where Antarctica is now. There's evidence that Greenland wasn't where Greenland is now. The thing that really pisses me off is that me and a bunch of other people wrote the president about this all the way back in 2017. If it could only have gotten the light of day, if it was only broached about and charted and shown evidence in a scientific manner that we've laid out, to which that the world could see the real threat to the planet, which is really the sun and near Earth objects and then volcanism, basically in that order. Now, as far as what's going on in Russia, the one thing that's extremely cheap, it decreased almost by 50%, is their fuel. And it looks like they're going to have to go back to all their local foods. McDonald's, KFC, Burger King was still open, but I think they're just going through their inventory of each different places. And I would say 70% of the stores are closed in the malls. And they're seeing hyperinflation for certain fruits and vegetables and things like that. So the people are getting hurt, not the person that we intend to change their mind. They're never going to change their mind because I can guarantee you that they contemplated this. So I used to have a Sierra Alpha Paul clearance. Um, Daniel Daly. So I know all too well about the reality of things. I know that the Soviets have a mindset that they can win a nuclear event and they can win a nuclear war. They don't care about their people like we do. They don't. And they really believe that they can win because this is how they've done things. This is how they've set up their weapons. The largest nuclear bomb that was ever detonated, ever, was a Russian bomb. Instead of sitting there in the laboratory and developing different types of technology, they had another program. They basically developed spies that were over here getting the technology for them. They found it cheaper. Chinese found it cheaper too. I'm going to let this go so that people see what this is, but keep the big thing that you have to understand is that if you've looked at the 40,000 pages that have been coming out and be released about the um, Paul vaccine, you'll see exactly what's going on. Now, what does this all really truly mean? How does this relate to us? Unfortunately, I saw this happening years ago from several directions. An EMP is actually extremely easy to make. And I was really worried about Iran bringing a container ship with a rogue container on it, sitting about 15, 20 miles offshore, this container opening and then shooting a rocket and bursting over Washington, D.C., and affecting the entire East Coast of the United States with an electromagnetic pulse weapon. Because I really thought that these people are crazy enough to do something like that. Now I can see that these people think that they can get away with something like that because they see us extremely, extremely weak. And they know that they have a limited time because they know that the Congress is going to change. They know that other things are going to change. And there might be an impeachment in the future for Biden. What does that mean? It means China's probably going to attack Taiwan before the end of the summer. It means things in Europe are going to get really, really bad and worse because instead this regime that we have in Washington right now is not producing any additional energy, not doing anything to reverse things that, and they're never going to do it. They want 8, 10, $12 fuel. That's what they want. They think that that's going to push the green agenda. What people don't understand, and what the left zealots believe, is that the planet is going to die if they don't do this. Unfortunately, that's incorrect. The reason why they're doing this is to make the fuel expensive so they can basically develop another tax. It's kind of like a VAT tax. It's going to be a carbon tax. And just like these other taxes, they're going to be there with their hands out collecting it, doing their so called carbon offset. The reality of which is that when this planet was frozen to the core, I mean, frozen to the equator, and there it was, the parts per million CO2 was 10,000 parts per million. Okay. If you don't believe me, then say to yourself, where did all the marble come from? Marble is calcium carbonate. Okay. Where did all this other stuff come from? Yeah, it's carbon sequestered. There is trillions and trillions of tons of it everywhere. Okay. But it's sequestered in rock and it's probably not going to really get out. I put it to you that most of the plants on this planet are basically starving for CO2. They're starving for carbon. They're at best their photosynthesis is about 14 to 15% efficient. That's why greenhouses pump CO2 into their greenhouses to get that number up to twice that amount, 30%, 32%. Makes the plants grow faster. It's essentially plant food. These are all facts. You guys can look them up. They're facts. Um, Charlie, Frank, Juliet. Uh, I never touted the benefits of Bravo, Utah, Sam, Harry. Okay, if anything, he's the enemy. The other thing you have to realize is that Trump was only one person, and he did not have the unadulterated cooperation of both houses, nor he had betrayers since day one around him. So you really don't know what he really could have done. And all he could do was pass executive orders, and all he did was um, Jim Foreman that actually exists. But the reality of the situation is that the man could not, like I said before, couldn't take a pee. He had his eldest son betray him, stab him in the back with a knife. Everybody in that thing, except for his daughter, maybe his brother-in-law, because face it, his brother-in-law is never ever gonna find trim like that. I hate to, sorry, ladies, but the reality is the reality ever. And also, she's the mother of that guy's children. So yeah, and that's his wife and his youngest son. His youngest son is Jim Foreman. No, um, look up 369 and look up Montauk and look up Operation Phoenix. That's all I'm going to say on that. Um, a lot of those um, programs and things like this were castrated. That's a good word. Under Clinton. As a matter of fact, if you look up what happened with the Ukraine, Clinton was the first one who saw the wealth and the criminal prospects in the Ukraine and made a deal to get for them to give up their nuclear weapons. And he gave them a guarantee that we were going to protect them and stop them from the former Soviet Union states, which is now Russia, from causing them problems. Nobody talks about that. Yeah, and all these things that Biden said was going to get to them hasn't. It's been 3.5 weeks, and they haven't gotten one switchback. 3.5 weeks, and they haven't gotten any ammo, any guns, any javelins, any stingers, nothing. Okay, it's the European allies that got some stuff to them, but again, it was promised that we were going to backfill the S-300 systems with Patriot systems, and guess what happened? That was slow walked and canceled. It didn't happen. So that didn't. I am not afraid of any man or beast. Charlie Fox Juliet. No, it's okay, Jim. We need a person who doesn't understand what the heck is really going on to really understand what's really going on. What's really going on is a reset. And what the reset is that welcome to the world that you own nothing. Welcome to the world of a renter. Welcome to the world of no savings. Welcome to the world of working your butt off and getting paid, and that's it. Welcome to the world of universal salaries for just existing. And that's what you'll do. You'll barely exist until some other plague, whatever, and they decide they don't need you and you'll be killed. For whatever reason, it'll seem natural. If you're so sure about your items and your things, then why don't you ask me a specific technical question about. I can't say that. Whatever. I mean, read my CV. I have it all published. Um, I also have that letter published. I'm one of 30 something people who signed it. But didn't go anywhere because it wasn't read, it wasn't addressed. And how come when each time the Japanese prime minister was there with Trump in the White House, that not even one question was asked about Fukushima, which is, by the way, leaking over 900 tons of the most radioactive water, wastewater, into the Pacific every single day. Literally an Elliott event that's going to unwind and kiss itself in about 53 years, which means the same water you see there will be in the Atlantic in about 53 years. Again, that's another fact. Unfortunately, the Pacific is not the Dead Sea. It's not an ocean that has no life. Okay, it has an ocean that has life, and unfortunately, plutonium and these other things gravitate towards plankton and other types, and so it's very quick to get into the food chain. The cesium replaces calcium. It's more favorable for a life form to take it up. But I don't know what I'm talking about, right? So literally, that's an extinction level event that started in 2011. Okay, which I addressed many times. Other scientists addressed many times, and um, Professor Michio Kaku came up with a plan to literally cap that whole thing, essentially, and it would involve literally China, us, Japan, and also Russia. And without all three, we wouldn't be able to do it. And it was only beneficial to the world and us and all of us if it was done. And every single day, that still is leaking because the cores have made it into the groundwater table. Exactly. I said the same thing many times. Again, was I listened to? Did I ever say that I agree with the Quebec plan? Go back on my well, you can't. They delete. Go back on my Odyssey page and go back on my videos. You'll see I did not agree with the Quebec plan. What did I really want? I wanted Junior to come out with the family then at the 2016 and that accepts this thing, and then boom, front and center. And he would take all the flack from the media, which would have left Trump alone to do his thing. The potential of Trump to be one of the greatest presidents we've ever seen and had was incredible. And if that came out and all the stuff came out, believe me, the French media would not ignore him. And then everybody else would come on board. Especially when the DNA test was done to prove that's him. The Charlie Indiana Alpha programs, the Mike Kilo Ultra programs, specifically the one that affected his sister, and everything else. Well, guess what? Okay. The last time that I've seen him was at the White House, but the last time that I heard was he was in San Andreas, and I don't have any idea where he is now. So get off on your tangent because if you know my history, if you've even looked into me and my family, you'll see that I was actually the only one, not this kid on the side of the road and this other crap that was telling you the truth. And no, I didn't fall for any psyop. No, I know who and I know what and I know where. What you felt was you didn't understand how deep and how ingrained the swamp is. I understood. I understood that you can't trust, but even I didn't realize that Mattis was part of it, that Kelly was part of it. I should have, because of the connections that I have. Just about everybody that I know, anybody over an 05, 06 is compromised in one way or another. I said that on multiple occasions. But unlike the past, when I was a young kid and I had admirals in my family, I do not have that luxury now. I mean, the highest rank I have is my son. Well, you're an idiot if you believe that, because the reality is who's giving him the notes. And I met Biden personally. Okay. In 2010, I met him personally, shook his hand. I can tell you that probably 80 to 90% of the time that I see him on camera, that's not him. I don't know who that is, but it's not him. Um, and just like the strings that were pulling Obama, the same people are pulling these strings. So, and I had ultimate disagreements with a lot of people, but the reality is that, like I said, I never went along with. I deciphered them. I gave you the code breakdown. I know how that works. I know how all that works. But I also gave my opinion, and I did not agree with it. I also told you there was a limited time to basically deploy this Jefferson thing. And I also told you that things had to fall in place at a specific time. When everybody was saying that this was not true, that it was a fake presidency, that's a fake White House and everything else, who was the one who was standing here telling you, no, that really happened? There was a Charlie Oscar Utah Paul. No different than if they killed him. Same difference. Because the effect is exactly the same. And yes, everybody fell into line. How did they fall into line? We don't know all the skeletons that the Charlie Indiana Alpha has on all these people, but we know that they have quite a bit. It's wonderful when you have all kinds of black ops budgets and everything else. I'll tell you something else. Charlie Indiana Alpha was working with the Kilo, no, it would be Kilo Golf Bravo. Yep. It was conducive for them, both sides. Think about it. Because both sides benefited and money and black ops and budgets. They could do whatever they wanted. And who came from that world on the Kilo Golf Bravo side? Oh, that would be Putin. Who's the one who said and shook the hands and it'll be easy after the election? Who said that to Putin? Who said it? Obama said it. And that was made true. Did it turn out that all that Russian disinformation was not really coming from Russia, it was coming from the Clintons? Answer, yes. Did it turn out that laptop, which was exposed 90 days before the election, really? And was it all said that it was all BS and it was said whatever? Yup. Was it kept? Yup. Was there hanky panky with specific things? Sure. And who do I blame for that? You ready? I blame Trump. That's right. After 2016 election, and he had both houses, things should have been done. To which that the first thing is his idea back in 2005 on the Oprah Winfrey Show, just set up an election system based on our ATM technology. That's what should have happened. Totally fair, totally validated system. And that's what should have been pushed. Now, is that judging? Maybe, because like I said, I was not in there, and he was being attacked and leaked from all sides. Everything he was doing was being told and broadcast. Everything. And 100% of the media was against him. Boy, that's unusual. Why is the media get all these talking points and they were really against him? And it wouldn't have happened if John was exposed that night that he won the victory. So, yep. Oh, they're working for the same team. Same team. Same team. I put it to you, anybody that's been in Congress for more than 15 years, they need to leave. There needs to be a two-term limit for every single office in Washington, D.C., period, in government. 2 terms. That's it. And that goes for civil, which means if you have a job, all those jobs need to be rated in specific years, and either you move up or you get into the private sector and you're out. Because that's where all the powers in these people who have been there for 40 years. They are the ones who control everything, really. Yeah. No, unfortunately, you've been deceived. Okay. Yeah. So that's the reality of the matter. And if you think, I put it to you again, if you look at the NTSB record and you think that that plane went down the way that plane they say went down, it's not possible. It's just, I'll tell you what, it's just possible. If that's possible, then Flight 800 went down exactly the way they say Flight 800 went down. The only fully animation ever that the CIA has ever done is the Flight 800 movie that they show you, quote, how that plane went down. Not possible. It's not physically possible for that plane to do that. It's also not possible for that plane. No, not possible. And then how come all that Navy was already on scene? And then what happened to Peter Salinger's tapes that show specifically that a missile went up and hit that plane? He was the press secretary, by the way, for JFK, and he was deemed as a nut. Did we ever see that tape again? We ever see that reports again? What happened to the recording of the voice of a person from a tower that was talking about what happened that night with JFK's plane? No. Sorry. No, you have no idea how bad it is. And you have no idea what is what. Okay. But they couldn't, he was going to run for Senate. He would have won. He was not a carpetbagger like Hillary. There's no question that he would have run and won the New York State Senate, United States Senator ticket. There's no question he would have won it. No question at all. Nope. How do you know he was on that plane? There was some kind of boarding pass? There was so many inconsistencies. And the other thing is that my friend and I simulated the flight. In order for you to be able to do that, you would have had to be equivalent of a Blue Angel in quality of aviation. That's the only way. Okay. Or the tail of that plane goes boom. And then how does that happen where you have a plane hitting the water at 125 knots? It still remains fully intact and corpses are found and everything else. Sorry. No, doesn't work. Doesn't work. Okay. So I've seen a car. You don't believe this? Look at the behind the scenes, and it's steel. That's steel. Okay. Look at the behind the scenes of what's up, Doc, and what happened to the Cadillac convertible, Coupe de Ville, that hit the water at 60 miles an hour. And it will shock you what happened to the front end of that car. We're talking, why? Water is not water above 45, 80, well, really 80 feet per second. It becomes something else. Okay. Multiply that, double it, double it to 170 feet per second. You don't have water. You know what you have? You got concrete. And aluminum only has a specific structural mass that's designed in an aircraft. I was certified in an aircraft. That whole thing would have, the inertia of that weight of mass, it would have just collapsed. It wouldn't care. It would have collapsed everything. It'd be just a flat little nothing. Yeah. It doesn't, no. Okay. Mm. Yeah. And again, then he wasn't even in the Navy. You know, come on. You had seasoned pilots who were in Nam, flying for the National Guard, that said, "Hey, we saw a missile come up from the sea and hit this thing, and I know it was a missile." You're talking about a guy who was seasoned, saw this, and knows what SAMs look like. No, nope. I was out that night in my sailboat. I was in Montauk Lake. I saw all the commotion. And guess what I heard? Because I monitor the frequencies. I heard a 121.5 ELT literally, and the only way I could hear it, because my antenna is maybe 60 feet up, had to be within a 50-mile radius of my boat. And my boat was in Montauk Lake. Why was that? Why did that happen? Why was that set off? No. And then all my evidence, which is now on my Odyssey page. And like I said, I used to be a rugrat, Rich, on, and last time it doesn't pay to even get into it. So, but now he sees how bad it is. So the reality is, I don't have only information. I don't. I told you I gave you one date when I thought that he would come out, and that's the anniversary of the launch of his father's dream. I was there. He was there. He was standing maybe 35, 30. No, I guess it was more like 50 feet away from me. We were both about 5.5 miles away from the launch. I'll never forget it. It was an incredible day, and I did a whole thing on it. That's when I thought. Any other questions before I get on to the next topic? No, no conversations. Look at this. And as soon as I say that, there's a whole thing that just flashed up. U.S. elections, robust safeguards help ensure the integrity of elections. Why do I have to say that? It can be improved. Any system that's there can be definitely improved. And if you set up an ATM system with two separate systems, which means one is an ATM, you fill out the whole thing and then it prints your ballot, then you walk across the floor and they scan it. That's a foolproof system. The two different things have to intersect and have to notch. Okay. It's a proven technology that's been used for 50 years. That's right. ATMs came out 50 years ago. So I don't see how that is anything, because that's just saying, look, we're in the 21st century. It should be something that is everybody knows how to use. Everybody knows how to use it. They're set up for blind people, for Christ's sakes. They're set up for everybody to use them. They're ADA compliant. Not the ballots that we have now. They're not. Not the stuff that we have now. But everybody knows, if you go into a bank and you want to get your money at an ATM, you'll see that ATM is Blind compliant and deaf compliant and everything compliant because of the yeah, the Disabilities Act. Yeah, they had to do it, and it's wheelchair accessible and it's foolproof. Why would it be foolproof? Because the banks don't want to be liable for your electronic theft of your money. Yeah. So what does it mean also? Something that's overlooked. If you have pets, you better stock up as much as you can on dog food. If you feed them dry, buy a bunch of it. If you feed them, canned food, buy a bunch of it. Or look online and download all the appropriate recipes using human food scraps and leftovers and whatnot, and how old they can be to feed your dog. Just you have to prepare for the worst, people. Hope for the best, but you have to prepare for the worst. It's your responsibility to prepare for blackouts, to prepare for food shortages, to prepare for odd and even gas lines, to prepare for all of that. To think about what you're going to do if you can't get more than a tank of fuel in a month. You're limited to 5 gallons. That's all you're going to get. I've lived through that time. Last time I had that happen was Sandy. Did it affect me? Didn't affect me. Why? I drove diesel cars. My ML was diesel and my van is diesel. I just went to my truck stop. I had no problem getting fuel. They had fuel. But you ready for this? My neighbor has my fuel. Home heating oil won't run in the ML, but it would run in my van. My van can burn anything. My van could burn vegetable oil that's in Costco. Yeah. That goes for all pets. Cats. I suggest sleepless. You go out and buy as much albacore tuna as you can. Go to Costco, buy as much as you possibly can. It's only going to get more expensive, and in a pinch, you can eat it, and your cats can eat it, and it's perfectly healthy for them. Nice to have something that you both can eat, and you can live off of a can a day. You won't be happy about it, but you can do it, and then it lasts a very long time. Better to have something you both can eat than only something that the cat can eat. Then the other thing is that I'm going to discuss something else that's been keeping me very busy, and it's a coordinated attack. They're attacking servers, private businesses, right? And they know that 90% of the servers are running with SSD for their drives, for the main, not the main data storage, but the main drive that actually runs the server and everything else. They know that on average, these SSDs have a lifespan because of the way the NAND gate works. And I'll explain that if you want. Just put if you want, I'll give you an analogy to that. Have two petaflop data read and write, okay, before they die. And they die basically in a read state. So you can read the data, but you can't write to it anymore. Okay. And there's a kind of management system on there to manage the NAND chips so that they get the most even wear out of the chips. Now, this technology is the same thing that's based if you have a phone, if you have an iPad, any of those things, they don't have hard drives in them. They have this non-volatile memory. Okay, and it works by actually pushing electrons past an insulator. And what happens is, over periods of time, that insulator breaks down. That's why these cells have a limited amount of writing, and that's why they wear out. Okay. Anyway, what do you think they made? Yes, if you answered China, you're absolutely 100% correct. So there's a run that's going on, and because all this hacking and bots are attacking, there's also a bots that are attacking SMS. They're trying to put viruses and other things into your phone. Apple just fell for something to which they released a whole bunch of people's data and codes and everything else to bad guys. So they're trying to push you into bigger company cloud storages, but what's happening is that that's what they want, because they'll take your data and use it against you or make a law, etc. Okay? And they don't want you to have anything private, especially data, especially computers that they can't fully control, fully monitor, fully see what you're doing, and control everything that's going in and out of it. Okay. They really don't, their plan is to not have you own anything. Okay. Um, yes. I've 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 seen many miracles in my life. So who am I to deny other people who've seen miracles? Um, I do not. I witnessed my father die in front of me. He was dead for almost 12 minutes on his way to the hospital. And at that specific time, he was blind. He couldn't, his eyes were milky, he couldn't see. And yeah, I had a new jacket and a shirt on. Later, when he came to in Good Samaritan, he said, "Oh, I saw everything." And I'm like, but then he told me exactly what I was wearing, exactly what was going on. And then he went up to heaven, and he saw Jesus, and he just, it was incredible. No, he didn't remember on the way up like I did, but I didn't make it up there. And I can tell you from all the love that I was feeling for the small amount of force that I was getting from God, that I probably would have forgotten everything that I saw, which was just horrible going up. But you see, God didn't want that. He wanted me to tell what I saw. And then he gave me some trials and tribulations to make me appreciate the mercifulness gift of that, but also I think that the miracles that affected me and were also another witness of his power and his love and mercy to others who saw these things happen to me that they couldn't explain. And if you don't believe me, again, go to my Odyssey page and go to specific videos and radio interviews I did. That was done approximately 1 year after I had my event, my 2015 April 10th event, with some nice stroke. And you'll see I'm a totally different person because he restored me. So no, God wants you to prepare. To me, this is no different than me giving the word to you and telling you to prepare, just like Moses did for the people for the Passover. I mean, they were ready for these plagues and everything else to hit Egypt. And there's going to be tremendous strife that is very possible to hit this country. I hope it doesn't. But there's nothing wrong with you buying things that you use, that you're going to use, which do not go bad, in advance. especially because there's no ifs ands or buts. It's going to be more expensive in the future, so you might as well get it now because it's going to cost more. Uh, yeah. So I mean, fill up your car every single day, no matter what. Always go to bed with it with a full tank. Always have a go bag in the car, in the trunk, ready to go. You've seen what I said about that. If you haven't, a Canadian Prepper has a good thing on that. Others have a good, but do it. Okay, go to Walmart, get a cheap um, book bag like your kids have, backpack. Fill it up with essentials. Make sure that it weighs no more than 15 pounds. Something that if you have to, you can park and just take and go. And you can survive for at least a month. The ability to survive for a month just with that backpack. If you have two people, you have to have two backpacks. They can't weigh more than 15 pounds. Have a plan. If you're elderly, you can't leave. There's many people who are elderly. They can't do it. They can't leave. Assess where you are. If you're in a big metropolitan area, you have to find a way to get the heck out. You have to find a way to leave and change your where you are. That's not going to be good. You can see that crime is going up. You can see that all kinds. No, you don't need no sleepless. No, no time for that now. What you need is a 12 gauge shotgun. If you're a person who can't handle a shotgun, then get a 915A Mossberg automatic shotgun. But get a 12 gauge shotgun. Okay, I would tell you to get a pump Mossberg 500 shotgun. It has interchangeable barrels. One of them is only it's the legal 16 inches long. It's it's very easy to pump, and that pump makes a lot of noise. Racking that gun is a very big thing. And then you have a tremendous choice of ammo. Ammo to which can save your life against others, and ammo to which can hunt and bring down prey that you can eat. So a shotgun is the way to go. Okay. A pistol requires skill on many levels. A shotgun, not so much. Not so much. It'll take you 5 to 6 rounds of shooting it to become proficient with it. And once you see that and the spread that it shoots, pretty easy to hit something with it. Okay. If you're shooting something within 50 feet, man, you're going to hit it. Okay. You're going to kill it. If it's an animal, you're going to be able to eat it. It's gonna work. Okay. And it's going to do it. And with various ammunition, such as slugs, you got a gun that can shoot 100 yards without a problem. We're talking 3-inch scoops at 100 yards. Okay, and you can put things on it, but I'll tell you right now, get a fiber optic open sight. Um, that's all you need. Something that glows. Okay, and yeah, I would grab mine and show you. I have two of them. Extremely reliable, very very reliable and safe because you don't have to keep one in the chamber. You keep them in the tube. So all you have to do is rack it. What's safer than that? It's huge safety. You got to pump it. Oh, well then either get a 930A automatic Okay, which is you don't have to pump. You just have to automatically use it. If you're a great shot, then and if you're illegally able to buy a gun, buy one. They're going to be extremely, extremely expensive to get one, and the ammo is going to cost a fortune. Okay, just saying. So the time to do that would have been like I don't know, 3 years ago, four. The Mossbergs are still like 250, $300. You can find them, but if you can't pump it, then you have to get an automatic, and they're more like $700. Or actually, they're probably more like $1,200 now. I haven't I haven't seen what inflation's done, but I'm sure it's affected all the prices. And then the ammo. When I got my another gun recently, it cost me $300 for 150 rounds of 9 millimeter, and that was then. And it's probably a lot more now. So yeah, that's a problem. Now that's I was getting that here. I didn't have any 9 millimeter here because I didn't have any 9 millimeter guns. All my 9 millimeter guns, all my guns really are in my other place because and the New York Safe Act hit, they made them all illegal. So I had to move them. Ridiculous. Some of my best competition guns I had to move. And all they were really good for is making holes in paper. They're not good for anything but that. The competition guns. Same thing with the skeet competition guns. Not good for anything except to break clays. So, yeah, I'd stay away from the Remington 2100, things like the 1100. I'd stay away from that. Even though there's a lot of them, it's a heavy gun. It's too front heavy for you. If you can't pump a Mossberg 500, for example, that gun's way too heavy. That's the problem with automatics. The Mossberg is lighter, but still heavier, you know. And if you're not strong enough to shoot, um, a pistol is going to be a handful. I wouldn't go any higher than really a nine. Um, you can get a lot of different things in a nine, but that's also going to be a problem. It's going to be You have to really be a good shot. You have to aim. A shotgun, you don't have to aim at all. You just have to point. There's a big difference between. You have to understand adrenaline and everything else is going to be running in you. I think you're going to be a lot stronger than you think. So, yeah. Canning supplies. If you haven't gotten any, get some. Buy lids, buy jars, you can buy the lid and jar, the whole thing. Get as much as you can. Buy a Presco canner. They're cheap. You can get them in Walbarms. Get that whole thing. Get the Ball book, Ball book. Yes, it's my family. Goes back to 1834. Where I think it was I don't know how many grades. Anyway, yes, get that about canning. Start canning. Okay. The thing about canning is you can can meats, you can can all kinds of stuff, and you don't have to refrigerate it. And it'll keep for a good, I would say, 5 to 10 years. Obviously, yes, it's going to be better in 2 years, but we've eaten stuff that's 10 years old and it was fine. Okay. Because we do a proper canning. Now, I'm not going to say that it didn't. What? You want a bone? You want a bone? You want to say hi to the folks? Okay. Yes. Yes. Are you going to show them your new collar? See his new collar. Yes. Oh, yes. Anyway, so Max is good. That's the other thing. Go to a shelter and get a dog. There's nothing like having a dog as an alarm system. That's better than any other alarm system you possibly know, because they will tell you if anything is awry. Okay, it'll take you 2 months to train them well, and then you'll have them for at least 8 to 9, 10 years. And they got to be at least they're going to be a dog that's going to be at least 40 pounds or up to make a difference, to where that people are afraid. And people are afraid. The bad people are afraid of dogs. Believe me. Okay, and they have a good right to be afraid of dogs, because a dog is a very formidable uh, protector. But the other thing is that they're going to tell you if something wrong is going on, and they're going to help you. Message retracted. Anybody seen? Oh, a lot of people haven't seen them. Please share this video. Join my Patreon site. It's the only income I have on this. I don't have any other income. And please join my Odyssey page. Again, it's the same channel, Ball on the BALL. That's odyssey.com. Okay. Um, why? Well, if I get over 500 followers, I'll be able to do a 100% uncensored show live, where I'd be able to sit and tell you without having to think about what I'm going to say. Editing my speech. Drink some water. But yeah, this whole thing makes me ill. The waste, the sin of it. I believed I believe we had a shot to make it to a class 1 civilization. I believed that we were going to do it. I believed that good was going to finally prevail. I believed that. But I was disappointed as much as any of you were disappointed. But that's um well, no, you can't have any account. You have to back up stuff onto things that, unfortunately for me, I have to back up stuff on hard drives. Um eh, yeah, that's a problem I have. I have about 100 and probably about 150 terabytes. No, maybe no. I guess it's 200. About 200 terabytes of data that I have to back up. That I have backed up. I have actually multiple copies of it in Vermont. My son has copies of it. And it's expensive as all living heck. But more than that, I mean, Mother Earth is degousing it every single day. Now, you're like, well, Bob, get some optical disc. They came out with that new it's only 100 gigabytes. 100 gigabytes, and it has a 1 in 50 error rate. Okay, that doesn't work. It means I'm going to have a problem. I'm going to have a copy of data that's not going to work. They've. I thought they were. I mean, IBM was working on the lithium niobide crystal system. I was looking at 16 terabytes on a crystal that was no bigger than my pinky nail, that was mounted on a stainless steel card. I can make that work. Okay. Yeah. Totally great. I don't know what happened to it. You're the only one. Let me see. I have probably one of the. I'm not kidding, and she's probably one of the. Well, she's definitely one of the top. I would say top 20 attorneys in the state of New York, but she's probably the top 100 attorneys throughout the country. And she's been mentioned above the fold, as she says in the New York Law Journal, which is yeah. So that's the reason why you're seeing this video. Her gravitas, okay, but they still f with me all the time. They try to delay stuff, cause screw ups, things like that. Okay, I had a hard time getting online today, and they'll use some technical jargon and all that kind of stuff. They still demonetize my channel. But people were saying I do a hateful for. Oh, and I have to make another correction. Now it's official. It's 38 sexes in New York State. It's 38. That's the official number. I still have yet gotten the white papers on it. Okay, because I am ignorant up to the wazoo. I do not know the terminology, and I do not know the quantifying test for it at all. I don't understand it. I don't understand what's the difference if I don't go into the bank and say, I'm really a billionaire, please give me a $200 million loan. I don't see the difference. There's either reality and you have an X and X or X and Y biologic thing. I mean, for these athletes, I think it's a tremendous insult and a violation of Title IX on these women. What's the difference if these women start doping themselves? They be thrown out of the competition because they're doping themselves with, growth enhancement drug, all kinds of things, right? What is the difference where these um, transgendered athletes are having a male stature, male hormones, male this? I mean, this is like the Soviet when the Soviet Union was doing it to the women, and they were gigantors, and they were disqualified. Well, what's the difference? You're using an unfair advantage. So you either then just have one sex, one human being competition, period, to where that men and women compete underneath the same thing. You have no whatever. That would be the only way they're trying to. But then women would be skewed on it, right? Because they're built differently. They're built differently because their bodies are physically different. There's significant differences in a woman's body compared to a male's body. They're designed for different things. Only a woman can do what a woman can do. I mean, a woman can do a lot of things that men can do, but only a woman can bring life to something on this planet. According to Apple, though, according to these other people, men can have babies. I'm telling you, if you go to Google and you look it up, yeah, they have an emoji that shows a man pregnant. That's and Jim Foreman is probably why when they realized that the plastic and polyester was going to come out in the wash and be put into the groundwater and be put into everything, and you're going to walk around nanoparticles of plastic that emulated estrogen in your blood, which gives women cancer and gives men femininity. Soy, lavender, these are known things too. Yeah. So I'm sure that that's part of their agenda and plan. Yeah. You didn't see any of the rich elites wearing polyester. Did you ever notice that? All their stuff was wool or 100% cotton. None of them would ever wear polyester. Ever. Interesting, huh? And they were using RO filters before everybody. By the way, an RO filter will filter nanoplastic particles. Interesting, right? Yeah. I thought you'd be interested in that. Why? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Much easier to conquer a specific village if you and this goes back to the Vikings. The Vikings knew this. If you go to Sweden, you'll see the result of this, and you'll see what the male species became there. And these things all have historic backings, so it's much easier to conquer that than to try to, you know, try to conquer that. Yeah, yeah. You no, not not gonna be very easy to do that, right? So he's going to, yeah, and we have a lot of that. Okay, so but these effects, nanoplastic is a tremendous threat. It's a threat to the world. That's the real threat. That's what they should be talking about. They talk about straws. They talk about all these things, but they don't talk about the. You notice they never mention polyester. They never mention plastic bottles. They never mention any of these things. But they mention. You see, they misdirect you by mentioning something that is a problem, but then you say to yourself, well, there is alternate polymers that they came up with which are biodegradable. Why are you not using those things when they came out 50, 60 years ago? Yeah, good question, right? And then what's the other side effect? Well, the other side effect is that it creates women to, or girls to, become so-called women at a much much earlier stage before their teenage years. That's a big exclamation point. What's that about? Colleen. What you know? Interesting, but you know. Anyway, I have like 12 minutes. Why exactly? Easier to control, right? So they make all this stuff, and it's much easier to control a fractured population and cause decisive kinds of civil wars and kinds of arguments because united we're a formidable people, right? So if the truth was really stated that the sun is really a problem, okay, and that it goes through cycles that basically cause mass extinction events on this planet, that asteroids, near Earth objects do come and hit us. There's one with our name on it. It wiped out the dinosaurs before. It will hit the Earth. It will happen. Will it be a full extinction level event? Probably not, but definitely the odds are it'll be a city killer. How would you like to be in that city when 14 million people get wiped out? Yeah, you can use starches formed by corn and other types of things to make a biodegradable plastic. It's actually cheaper. Believe it or not, that when the guy who invented plastic, they came up with that polymer chain based on, and it's not based on the corn food. It's based on the corn, the stuff that they throw away, not the food part, the other stuff. And the Rockefellers and other people didn't want that. They wanted to be petroleum based, and I'm sure that the chemistry of this of the fatty ester was analyzed and what it would become. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm using that as an example. Paul asked about that, but I mean the reality is what's the difference? If you have a guy who was an Olympic grade male athlete swimmer as a and competed as a man, so he's one of the top male swimmers, and then he goes ahead and switches his sex and then becomes a female, and then swims against female. I mean, he's beating and these records by like a second, second half, 2 seconds. I mean, it's insane. These women are never going to be able to compete with him, except for maybe long distance, really long distance, like I don't know, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. That's where the muscle that this guy has is going to be a detriment to him, and where the slight proportion of fat that women carry, which is greater than men, is going to be their advantage because then they have to use less energy to keep themselves afloat. And that's just a strict energy equation. So all the long distance record swimmings are done by women for that reason. They have an advantage for long distance swimming because of the buoyancy in water, which is different. I mean, both of my sons, uh, they literally sink to the bottom of my pool. They can walk. Well, forget it. If they don't tread the water and swim, they just sink like a rock. My sons have literally no fat on them. They're ridiculous. Okay, and they work out even harder. It's please, and they don't cheat. They don't. I mean, they can eat anything and they don't. And well, that's hemp, but I'm saying that there is actual for this. You need vast amounts of cellulose. There's tremendous amount of waste, specifically grown corn, that's left on the field that could be gathered, that can be used as this material to make these polymers. Okay, it's the same with a lot of different types of crops. Okay, the waste, even the waste of bamboo, certain, you know. Now, granted, Costco's already doing that with their um, wet ones, soft wipes, things like that. It's called, I think it's called Tencel. It's a patented process they developed. But yeah, yeah, and Jim Foreman, I'm all for that. You ready for this? I'm for them to legalize all drugs. Okay, but I'm also for them to legalize drugs so that I don't have to go to my doctor. He can just give me a list of what he wants and I can compete for my blood pressure medicine. I can compete for my thing. The prices of all my drugs will decrease because people have to then compete for my business. But also, they're getting the drugs illegally and they're loaded with fentanyl and everything else. At least then other places can make these things, and at least the ingredients will be known. And yes, it's got the label on it, warning, it's going to kill you, whatever. But at least I know so many people have lost their children because of these drugs. And at least then you'll take the criminal money out of it and control it as a health issue, a health crisis, because they saw it doesn't work. Prohibition never works. Prohibition never works. Okay. Um, I think sunflower seeds are a fantastic food. Coconut. Did you realize that? I'm not telling you you'd like it. I wouldn't like it, but you can survive on one coconut a day. Okay, it has everything you need. I find that to be incredible. You know. So, like I said, I love fish and everything else. I have five, not even 4 minutes. 4 minutes. So, what are you guys going to do? You're going to prepare for this. You're going to buy everything you can as far as the commodities that you use. If you have a pet, buy a lot of tuna fish. If you have a cat, if you have a dog, think about not throwing out any of your leftovers and everything else that might not be something you might throw out of the refrigerator. Believe me, their metabolisms can handle it. Okay, and do the appropriate calorie count in those meals. But it's something that you have to consider. So you have to start limiting your costs into things that you have to be able to sustain yourself. Things that keep like forever. Rice keeps forever. Buy as much rice as you can. Buy as much flour as you can right now. Not the 1 pound bags. Buy 50-pound bags of flour. Break them up. Buy yourself a food saver, or and you can use a food saver with canning jars, and you can fill these canning jars up with flour. I don't do that. I just put them in bags and I freeze them. Freeze them for at least 3 to 4 days, absolutely frozen, and then after that you can take them out, store them in a cool, dry place with no light. The freezing will kill the weevil eggs. Peanuts. Peanuts is a very natural. The first diesel engines were designed to run on peanut oil, by the way, and yeah, it was designed to be a self-sufficient kind of thing where farmers would be rotating the crops and planting peanuts after the corn, and then the peanuts would replenish the nitrogen in the soil, and they worked this whole thing. What were they going to do with peanuts? All these things that Washington, but also um, diesel. That's the guy who invented diesels. Actually, came up with it, and first diesel engine was actually running on peanut oil. At any rate, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Know that the petrodollar is dead. All those trillions of dollars that these countries had to buy oil and stuff like that are now going to have to they're going to come back. Okay, because a lot of these other countries have signed SDRs, so they're out of they broke the agreement. They broke it. Okay, way to go, Brandon. Anyway, this is part of their plan. God bless.